Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Social Masterclass. We are just going to wait just 30 seconds just for everyone else to join. We can see that people are starting to join us now. So yeah, just going to wait a short while and then we'll begin. Right, Em, I think we're going to start. As people are still joining us, we're going to do some introductions. So from me, welcome to the Social Masterclass. That is how relying on a social marketing apprentice can screw your business. If I may, a brief introduction to us first. So we've recently merged FKC London and lo and behold, to create Logic and Magic. We are a fully integrated independent agency and we offer in-house creative, strategy, production, UX, web build, TV, advertising, as well as social that we're going to talk to you about today. So don't forget to look at our out for more masterclasses that we've got on our LinkedIn page. A small plug for the next one. So our next one is SEO and Dev. That's about how not to fall off Google with your new website. That's next Wednesday, same time, 2 p.m, same place. And that's obviously with our SEO and Dev teams. So we are live across LinkedIn, YouTube, and StreamYard. Feel free to pop any comments or questions into the chat, and we'll get to them at the end as part of a Q&A session, which again we'll mention a little bit more in a second. If we don't get a chance to get to them, don't worry. We'll come back to you after the session itself. So that's kind of the intro to Logic and Magic. A quick intro to ourselves, if I may. So I'm Mark Burgess. I'm director across Logic and Magic, and I'm your host today. But it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Emma Hodgkinson, strategy and channel director. Emma, a little intro from you.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you to everybody that's joining us. It's a pleasure to be speaking at this social masterclass. As Mark mentioned, my name's Emma and I'm strategy and channel director at Logic and Magic. And my expertise is all things research, insight, brand, and the customer. And within our agency, I also look after our marketing execution teams across creative, social, and SEO too. On this screen, you can see both mine and Mark's email address, so please feel free to get in touch if you have any questions or anything that you would like to talk to us in relation to social in your business. So this masterclass is all about how relying solely on a social marketing apprentice can screw your business. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about why we chose this subject. So we know that things are tough now in the wider landscape, and it can be a common choice, especially if you're a new business or one that's just dipping your toes into the world of social, to have a colleague in-house looking after your entire social media presence. The challenge that we're going to be talking about today is what happens when that colleague is an apprentice. So in the next 45 minutes, you'll learn all about how social is changing, why it's not smart to rely solely on a social apprentice, the importance of a social strategy, why you need the right expertise, and as a little bonus, we're going to be giving out a common social myths plus platform top tips guide for everyone at the end of the session. So please do stay with us. So, on to the changing landscape of social. So in terms of how people use social, we've got 5 billion social media user identities globally, and that means your potential audience is huge. And as we know, their attention spans are even shorter. On average, people spend about 2.5 hours each day using social media. And interestingly, that's a 5.5 decrease year on year. And what that means for businesses is that with people spending less time each day, you have even less of a chance to make an impact. Adding to that mix a fiercely competitive landscape with other brands and businesses trying to talk to your customers about their products and services too. And it means that as a social media manager, they're having to work even harder to capture attention, engage and convert your audience. And finally, we also know that over 15 million people in the UK have tried a digital detox. And that means that they're choosing to switch off from digital technology. And of course, that means social, and actually take a break from anything digital altogether. And as we see more and more of that experimentation when it comes to detoxing, it means, again, we're having to work even harder to cut through the noise and make sure that we are seen and heard on social in the right way.
So we thought we'd start with a little bit of interaction, if we may. So to get you involved, based on what Em just said, basically, in terms of the size of social media, we thought we'd ask the question: what percentage of businesses do you think are on social media? So in the comments, if you could possibly choose A, B, C, or D, and a quick reason why, if you can. So let's play Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Call a friend. Can't really take a 50-50, but if you want to put two answers, you can. So please, put those into the comments. Is it A, 21%, B, 67%, C, 82%, or D, 94%? So quick recap, just for some of these numbers to come through. What percentages of businesses do you think are on social media? A, 21%, B, 67%, C, 82%, or D, 94%? Em, I think you might know the answer, so I'm not going to ask you where you're leading to. Personally, I'd be going higher, so I'd be looking at C and D. But what have we got in the chat? We've got a couple of C's. We've got one A. We've got a B. We've got an 82%. So C and D, and another couple of C's. So look, there's quite a few C's. I think the C's have actually got it in terms of 82%. M. So we'll give a final A coming in here as well. So a real spread. Actually, a real spread. I think the C's have got it. So M, the answer is. It's D, 94%. Okay, I think a couple of you got it. So congratulations if you did. Let's find out why, shall we?
Great, thank you. And hopefully no £32,000 prize money from yourself there, Mark, if you want to be a millionaire. Great. So as we've seen there, in terms of that statistic, nearly every business is on social media. And there are some really tangible benefits as to why that's a really good idea. So the first one is increased brand awareness. Social media platforms help you reach a wider audience, so increasing your brand awareness. And by creating engaging content, you can get your message in front of a large number of people who are actively engaged. Speaking of engagement, social media provides a platform for businesses to engage with their customers and build relationships with them. You can respond to queries, provide support to customers, and also offer things like promotion and discounts to your followers. Another great tangible benefit is around increased website traffic. So by including links to your website in your social media posts, you can drive traffic to your website and increase conversions. And if you're a product or service business, ultimately, we hope that means sales. A great benefit of social media is that it's often more cost-effective than traditional advertising methods. You can target specific demographics and interests, ensuring that your message is seen by the right people, and you can measure your results more effectively. My favourite benefit, and I would say this as somebody who's an insight and strategy-led leader, is that social media tools and analytics provide valuable insights into your customer preferences, opinions, and behaviours. And by analysing that data, you can really understand your customer in more detail and then build that knowledge into your plan to create better content and messaging for your customers that's much more impactful. Finally, the final benefit is around tangible benefits. So in terms of improving SEO, so social media signals can have a positive impact on your search engine rankings. By creating high quality content and engaging with your followers, you can improve your online visibility whilst ranking higher on search engines. And I hope that you can see that there's some really great benefits as to why businesses will be on social media. The challenge, though, is that when you ask a business why they're on social media, none of those tangible benefits come through. And the most common reason that people give that we hear is, and I quote, because everybody else is. And whilst that's an understandable reason to be on social media, it means that actually businesses and brands might not be thinking about what their plan for social media might be. They're just thinking about being on the platforms themselves. And unfortunately, in the landscape that we're in, that's not quite enough. So when you're on social media, again, it's not enough to just be on the platforms. Customer connection is expected. So just under 2/3 of customers expect companies to offer customer service through their social media. Customers these days do not want to be sat for 25 minutes in a telephone hold queue. They want to instant message you on a platform of their choice, and then get a response straight away. We also see that 90% of social media users have already connected with a brand or business through their chosen platforms. So you can see there that customers are really open to building that relationship with brands online in the right way. The interesting thing, though, is that the platforms are changing at lightning speed. So the algorithms are changing more often and getting even harder to predict. With no set plan or comms about algorithms across the platforms, businesses need to be working harder to ensure that we're always showing up and engaging audiences. From prioritizing direct connections on LinkedIn to serving customers more of the same on TikTok, it's even harder as a social media manager to use the algorithms to your advantage. We're also seeing the rise and fall of platforms. In the last year alone, we've had Threads, Lemonade, whatever next. We're always seeing new platforms being added to the social mix. And once launched, we all jumped ship. They sound like a great new platform with a great idea. And that now means for a social media manager that they've now got even more platforms to share content on and engage those audiences. And actually, when we think about it, some of those platforms don't stand the test of time. So it's really key to think about when there is a new platform, whether that's right for you and your business. The other thing that we're seeing is new tools, new names, and new ways to reach audiences. So goodbye Twitter, hello X, and we all know that story. I think that would be a webinar in itself, Mark. But it's fair to say that new doesn't always mean better. A lot of the platforms are testing and learning themselves, whether that's polls in Instagram posts and captions, live stickers coming into the mix. You can see that it's really important for those platforms to be unlocking features that really help brands and businesses engage with their audience. It's up to you, though, and your social media manager, how you best use them. And some of those features stick around, and again, some of them don't stand the test of time. Finally, we're also seeing the limitation of targeting. So Meta are taking away targeting options, making it much harder for brands to reach audiences, even on paid social. And again, with that broad targeting, it doesn't always mean that it's better for you.
So some really interesting points there. The one that immediately jumps out for me is obviously, as we had in the poll, that most businesses have a social media presence. Why though? Because everyone else is. It just kind of seemed absolutely crazy. I think we'll get onto that a little bit later on in terms of the actions of where we can get to with that and what the plans are. Also, the other main point for me was platforms constantly evolving and just can't sit still as well. And all of this around the challenging environment as well, about the average time on social decreasing, 50 million people taking a digital detox as well, and then customers' expectations of brands on social media is just at an all-time high. I mean, Em, has it ever been any harder than this for a brand to be on social?
Absolutely not. I think it's interesting when you think about the original remit of social, which is to engage audiences. But then when you've got a social media manager's job to then think about these platforms, how are they changing? Then overlay that with then, well, how would that work for their audiences? Then overlay that with, well, when's the right time to post? Times the number of platforms. It definitely is a tricky territory right now for media managers in social.
Certainly is.
Thank you so much. So we're now going to talk about why you shouldn't rely solely on a social media apprentice. And it's really clear to note at this point that when we're talking about apprentices, we really do mean those starting out in their career. Their knowledge, when it comes to apprentices, their knowledge can be limited and should be at this stage. As I mentioned, they're starting out in their career, and it's likely that a social media apprentice might not have any experience in a professional setting. So that's almost why they're doing the apprenticeship, to learn the skill on the job. As a business, it can be easy when we're looking to reduce cost in the business to see the low salary of an apprentice and think that that's the best route to take. But reducing costs in hiring will only lead to problems later down the line. You're not also doing right by the apprentice either, because if you can't help them upskill, who will they be learning from? So we're going to talk a little bit now about the different expertise levels that are required in social to do the job effectively, and also some of those seniority levels and what their typical remits are. So we'll start with the head of social, typically around 6 to 8 years experience. Their remit is vast. It's developing social strategies. They're really there to understand your business inside and out. They'll have experience of all social media channels and also the years of experience behind that to understand where they come from, how do they work now, and where might they be going. They'll also be at the forefront of industry updates and innovations and be really clear about where the social media industry, where your customers are going, and how that ties together. Ideally, they'll link the social strategy to other marketing activity that's happening in your business. So actually, they'll be thinking about what's happening in SEO and PR and have the ability and expertise to tie all that together so that it feels consistent for the customer, aligned to your marketing strategy. They'll be able to create, develop and run both paid and organic social media campaigns, make recommendations based on previous campaign performance. They'll oversee all content creation, think about your influencer strategy and what that should look like, and also typically will manage a social media team as well. We then move on to a social media manager, one level down, typically with about 2 to 5 years experience. If they're at that 2 years experience, it's likely that they'll be a newly promoted executive in social. But a great social media manager really does the doing when it comes to social. They'll be managing budget, they'll manage and run social media campaigns. At this point in their career, they might have a specialism between paid or organic social. So they might think about, actually, I really enjoy the technical side of social, or I actually enjoy more of the content side and the content creation. They'll be planning all of the content. They'll also be creating high quality content, which typically requires some level of creative or graphic design expertise, alongside expertise in video editing and using the apps in the right way to edit content down and make sure it's fit for social. They'll be analysing data, they'll report on performance, they'll manage ads, they'll be really in the depths of your community management strategy, so actually thinking about how do customers comment, like, share, are those queries coming through on social, how is the brand responding to them? They'll also look after your influencers, so actually from the strategy they'll think about the number of influencers they have and really manage that through in terms of then how influencers then receive your product or service and then post about it to their own communities. Likely, they'll collaborate across departments. So for example, if somebody in your HR team wants to post on LinkedIn, the social media manager will work with that colleague or series of colleagues and think about what the right approach might be in order to appear consistent. And it's also likely at this point that they'll manage junior team members. At the bottom end of the expertise level is your social media apprentice. As we mentioned, it's likely that they'll have no prior experience. They're really there to assist with tasks from the social media manager. They'll monitor brand mentions and maybe respond to basic comments. So for example, if someone was to ask somebody's opening hours or a generic query, less so any kind of complicated topics or customer service related queries from the customer. They might research some trends and kind of see what's happening now and think about how that might apply to your business and brands. But ultimately, their job is to gain experience for an apprenticeship. And as you can see there, we've just highlighted a few of the skills required to effectively run a business's social media presence. And that requires years of expertise. And when you actually think about that and then layer on the platforms on top, which is, I think there's about 10 platforms on here, it clearly and quite quickly becomes an impossible ask for one person, never mind a social media apprentice. Now, even with the best of intentions, when social goes wrong, the brand reputational risk can be huge. And I'd like to share with you a few examples about when that has happened, where there's been some really good intentions internally, but unfortunately things have happened, or there might have been a skills gap that have meant the execution of that content has led to a significant brand reputational risk. So the first one, and I think sometimes this is an ask of all social media managers, is to think about what's trending, what are the hashtags that we can start a conversation on. And we know that hashtags are the keywords of social media. They're a great way to let your content be seen by many people and be part of that larger conversation. However, as with any social media trend, knowing the context and origin behind a trending hashtag is crucial before joining one. And this is a really good example from a bakery brand called Entenmann's. On Twitter, as it was formerly known then, the brand inadvertently joined the trending hashtag not guilty in order to kind of join that conversation and bring their brand into the conversation around treats. In reality, though, that hashtag was from a real criminal court trial, and Twitter users were voicing their opinion on the outcome of that trial using the hashtag. The company eventually took down the tweet and posted an apology after receiving quite a lot of backlash. And as you can see there, it's really about thinking when it comes to social, what are the hashtags that you feel your brand has an appropriate level of relevancy to join that conversation, because actually there might be things that are trending sometimes where you don't have the right to join that conversation as a brand. A second one, again, good intentions. So we've got a marketing campaign. We want to promote that on social media and start that social conversation in relation to a broader marketing campaign. So you might get a brief or an intention around how can we talk about our TV ad onto social. And this actually was an example from last year from M&S. So they had got their new Christmas campaign, which was full of celebrities and a great story. And unfortunately, they posted this social media image where they'd taken a still from the campaign and started to talk about the campaign in the caption. And actually, optically, kind of when you look at that particular image, whilst it appears on the surface to be paper hats, there was an observation that it had a likeness to the Palestinian flag, when actually that was quite timely because of some broader world conflict that was happening. And again, the brand just seemed to kind of feel like that tonally was nowhere near where they wanted to be for their Christmas campaign, as you can imagine. And again, they had to take that down and post an apology and say that it wasn't intentional. But again, once you've kind of wandered into that territory as a brand and got into that situation, it's really hard to come back from. Another tactic that has really well intentions that sometimes cannot land the way we want it to is this idea that social is a really great place to be reactive and also be a bit funny. It's also that place where we talk about building that authentic relationship with people online. And sometimes it cannot land maybe in the way that we wanted to. This example is from Ryanair, and it was in 2022 after Jadon Sancho failed to make the England squad for the 2022 FIFA World Cup. And they joined that conversation and tweeted him and said, at Sancho, we'll still fly you somewhere, and with a kiss emoji. And there was a lot of backlash for them saying that, because actually that was almost a global brand using the misfortunes of a young, talented individual who's tried his best but has just missed out on his dream. And they've decided to kind of go and troll him ultimately and make comments to him. And it started a broader conversation around the appropriateness of brands doing that to individuals, and naturally then started a mental health conversation around what that can do to individuals when they feel like they're being attacked or trolled by individuals or brands on social media. Finally, and again, we see this a lot with social clients when they want to start working with influencers. Again, really great intention to think about how do I spread the word to new customers by using influencers who might have a particular niche community or a broad base of the people that we want to target. How do we bring them into our social media strategy? And this is a really great example of a brand called Pink Honey, who rose to fame in the last year on TikTok for selling viral makeup products. And again, great intentions. So they decided to take a series of influencers and put them on a brand trip. So they had a lovely location, a lovely day plan for these influencers, and gave them free product. And obviously in return, were wanting their influencers to then post about it or share their story of the brand trip. The challenge was, though, that when you actually looked at the optics of the influencers that they chose, it was clear that there wasn't any diversity or inclusion thought in the series of influencers that were selected to go on the brand trip. And what happened there was it started a much broader conversation around diversity and inclusion in the beauty industry. And unfortunately for Pink Honey, they were seen to be at the negative side of that, which, as you can imagine, no brand wants to be part of. There's also some other drawbacks to relying solely on a social media apprentice. Ultimately, as we've discussed, they can't manage all of the platforms effectively. They'll be spread too thin, which means you'll get basic posting on the platforms you are on, and ultimately you're not going to see the results you need. As they're an apprentice, their knowledge of your business strategy and marketing strategy will be limited. And actually, when you've got that expertise through your social team, they really should see that the social media strategy falls down from the marketing strategy, and that in itself falls down from the business strategy. And ultimately, you'll see that consistency in all marketing activity. When you don't have that knowledge and expertise, it might just feel ad hoc, it might feel random. And again, you're not going to get that consistency in the social media posts that you're looking for, which again will hinder your results. Another drawback is that social is so much more than just posting on the platforms or sharing the same content across multiple platforms. Again, something that we see happen a lot. It's really easy when you're busy and under pressure to take one message or one piece of content and repurpose that for LinkedIn, for Instagram, for Facebook. But your audiences on those platforms might be incredibly different, and therefore that one message might not translate or work in the same way across multiple platforms. It's also worth noting that all of the platforms behave very differently and have their own nuances in terms of what works and what their algorithm favours. So again, coming back to that expertise point, platform knowledge is key, and you're really looking for someone with the right skill set that has that knowledge to help drive your social forward. Going back to the role of an apprentice in terms of what they're here to do, they're there to learn the skills on the job. And when they're running your entire social media for you, the question that you've got to ask yourself is, who are they actually learning from? If they don't have a team around them, they don't have peers who are more experienced in social, they don't have anyone to learn from. And again, it's probably not the right thing to do there by the apprentice by having them look after your social media presence alone. One of the things that we see quite often is that social media is given to younger team members who, in inverted commas, get the platforms. And it's worth noting that a social media user is not the same as a social media manager. Just because somebody might post on Facebook, personally, or have grown up using the platforms, it doesn't mean that they will understand the technicalities of the platform and how to get the best out of them. And finally, when you've got an apprentice looking after your entire social media activity, because of how busy they are, because of their limited knowledge, ultimately, there isn't going to be a strategy in place to help you succeed and reach your goals on social media.
Thanks, Em. Right, there's an awful lot of points there. Lots of things to think about. I mean, in summary, for me, I mean, the first thing that hits me, I mean, I grew up with Google. But that doesn't mean that I can buy Google ads. It doesn't mean that I'm a specialist in that area. Definitely not trained there, and not something that you just immediately expect someone to pick up. I mean, my other observation is that brands are, arguably asking social media managers and apprentices for an awful lot here. When you ran through all the job descriptions, all the different elements there, I mean, that's a big ask. That's a big ask in terms of all of the possibilities that are there. Also, the thing that jumped out at me was the significant risk as well. So the brand reputation bit, if brands aren't careful, again, through no one's faults, but if in the wrong hands, these mistakes can happen. And look, that happens, but more and more from the commercial angle, right? The impact on sales or boycotting of brands, or just generally the whole risk is high. It feels really dangerous, doesn't it? Very, very sort of charted territories for many brands there to be placing their faith in an apprentice.
Absolutely. And that brings us on really nicely into the importance of a social strategy. So you might be sat there thinking, why do I need a social strategy? And we've got some top tips and reasons as to why that's the great route to go down. But ultimately, a great social strategy starts with an audit of where you are today. It really seeks to understand what the activity is that you're currently doing, how that's performing, who your audience is on social, the content that you're doing, is it delivering? You'll really get that baseline benchmark of where you are today. A great social strategy has one direction that everyone's aligned to, with a clear role and purpose for each channel. So you'll come away from having a strategy knowing exactly what the role and purpose of LinkedIn is versus Facebook versus TikTok. And actually, it really then starts to think about how the plans for each of those platforms might be different rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. A great social strategy is aligned to your business goals, as I mentioned earlier, filtering down from the marketing strategy. So even though social is a collection of platforms and channels, it should sit in your wider marketing mix of all the other initiatives that your marketing department is doing to promote your brand, product, or service on social media and beyond. So it really should feel like one consistent set of marketing activity initiatives to the customer. When you've got a strategy a good one at least, you should have some really clear objectives. And once you've got objectives, it means you can measure them and then make optimizations on your social media activity based on what you're trying to do. When you do that, you're more likely to see improvement on your social media initiatives. An underrated benefit of having a social media strategy is that it helps to set clear boundaries and helps to manage internal expectations. Quite often, Mark and I, in different conversations with clients, will really see that actually, when that role of social isn't clear, it can open a bit of a gateway for other departments in your business to perhaps see social as a bit of a free department, free marketing department, or a place where if we've got a message and we just want to get that message out there, we can use social. And what happens sometimes is when that role of social isn't defined, is the colleagues that are responsible for social can kind of bend to some of those requests, and ultimately to the customer, they're thinking, it feels quite scattergun. I don't really know what this brand or business is trying to say to me on social. And when you have a clear strategy, it sets those parameters around what you will and won't post on social and really helps us manage some of those internal conversations too. Again, when you've got a great social strategy, it should really speed up and help make more efficient your content planning production. You'll be really clear about what your brand is there to do on social, visually, how your brand shows up, and then in terms of production, what are the templates or things that you have in your armory that your content can slot into to really make that much quicker. And finally, one of the biggest benefits of a social strategy is that when you've got that focus and you've got that alignment on what one direction is, and you know what each platform is and does, and you've got your content pillars, your posts and your content will feel consistent to the customer, and therefore you're more likely to see better results with your social media activity. So a great strategy also helps to influence and convert your audience. So in terms of influencing customers, it's about being sure to show up where they are, being present on the platforms that your customers use the most so that you're part of the conversation, or maybe even driving it at times, but ultimately being there when it matters. In terms of converting customers, it's about being ready and front of mind when they are ready to purchase. And actually, when we think about the customer journey, they might not always be ready to buy from your brand, product, or service the first time they see a post on social. It's about moving them along that journey in the right way. So when they see your branding part of trends and conversations, and they're seeing regular posting from you, it's about making sure that your brand is salient in the mind of the customer when they are ready to buy from you, that your brand is the brand of first choice. It's really important as well that with your strategy, you're sharing the right message at the right time. And that has a duality to it. So it's not only about showing up with the right message and saying the right thing to the customer, it's also about showing up at the right time, on the right platform with the right message. And again, it's about nudging people along that customer journey, ultimately to either buy from you or get really kind of move along that journey to getting you where you want to be on social and building that relationship with your followers. Finally, it's about ensuring your customers feel seen, heard, and represented. So helping to create brand loyalty across the platforms, that when you do release something new or have a new product or service that you want to talk about, your loyal legion of customers are at the front of that queue cheering you on as a brand and ready to buy from you. And a really good example of that is Gymshark. So when they recently opened their physical store, they had a queue round the block of people ready to go and shop that store and find out how Gymshark were planning to take their online business into a physical store. And the way that was successful was because they'd spent years building communities of loyal fans on social media and really building those authentic connections first. So let's talk about why you need the right expertise. So in terms of getting your house in order when it comes to social, we've got 6 tips here and 6 stages that we think that are key when it comes to really thinking about where do you go from here on social. And we'll start with a social audit. So thinking about where are you today? Who are your current audience on social, and how does that differ by platform? Is there a difference between your current social audience versus your target audience? So are the people on social, don't get me wrong, they're great, but who are they actually the same customers that you want to target with your product, service, or brand? If so, great. And if not, you might need to think about a strategy to get the followers of the target audience that you do want to have on social. How is your content performing? Where do you see the highest engagement? What are the competition doing and what can we learn from them? all of these insights wrap up into learnings that help inform the strategy. And it might be at this audit stage that you feel like actually it's a great time to get some external help. And often when we work with clients, this is our first step. We'll help you pull all of the data together and make recommendations based on what we found out to then really help you drive your strategy forward. On to the next step. So a social strategy, where you want to be, defining the reason as to why your brand or business is on social, along with a series of objectives and KPIs. You'll be clear on who you're targeting and define the jobs to be done within the strategy. From there, you'll develop content pillars and a series of tactics and ideas designed to bring those pillars to life, along with key messages and the moments that matter to the customer. You'll also think about the balance of planned versus reactive content and set some of those important boundaries for what reactive content should and shouldn't do. From there, you'll also develop creative foundations, and this is all about how your brand shows up on social media. It might start with creating a social media tone of voice, which is really interesting when we think about the role of social in a wider brand narrative, where you might dial up one of your brand values, or again, see social as a place to be fun or educational. It might actually tweak your tone of voice a little bit, and you might decide to have a specific social tone of voice about how you show up and talk to customers on social media. It's also good to think about visually how your brand shows up on social, the types of images you want to use, and the use of your brand assets in content, etc. From there, we move to campaign and content planning, which is all about how you make sure you stay relevant and, more importantly, reach those goals that you've set out in the strategy. So a typical social media manager will work month to month, but at this point, it's really about stepping back and looking at the strategy and thinking about the seasons and moments that matter to your customers and how you bring that to life. That might be through a creative campaign idea. It might be through pulling out key events throughout the year that really matter. But again, it's about taking those moments and tying them back to your goals so that you're not celebrating, National Pork Pie Day, for example, if actually that has no relevancy to your brand whatsoever or your goals. The next step is execution. So how to make sure you execute correctly. We've seen from a few minutes ago how when execution falls down, that can have a significant reputational risk for your brand or business. And it's about this is all about making sure your standards are high and making sure that you do your due diligence beforehand when it comes to executing your social media content. Your social content should feel authentic to the customer, but ultimately should always be a positive reflection of your brand. Finally, it's all about measurement. So how you learn, optimize, and grow. So making sure that you have the right tools and processes to ensure you're reporting on your social performance and activity regularly, knowing where you need to optimize, and from there, your social media efforts will grow. The challenge with all of that, again, though, is that many businesses don't have the capacity or budget to hire a full social media team. Now, this is one example of a social media team. And traditionally, you might start with a head of social, you'll have a social strategist, then you might have a paid social media manager and an organic social media manager. You might have a content creator. You might then also have a social media exec, or more junior, a social media apprentice. Again, that sort of team building, if you don't have it already, requires significant investment in your business into putting that team together, them gelling together, them understanding your business, what you want to achieve. And again, some businesses often don't have the time or capacity to bring that to life in the way that they'd like. So to get the best out of social and to effectively deliver your goals, you can do one of two things. The first thing you can do is outsource upfront work, so the audit, strategy and planning, and then put ongoing support around existing team members to help them succeed and grow. So you can see here, we call this in our agency the We Do It With You model. It's about putting your social apprentice or your existing team members in the middle and then using agency support or external support outside of them in a 360 manner to really help them succeed. So an example here is you might have consultancy sessions where the experts are on hand. So actually, we'll sit with your social media manager and maybe go through a report and offer our guidance on recommendations on what an optimization might look like. Again, those consultancy sessions are a kind of ask anything forum where you can get the help and advice your social team need from experts. We also offer campaign and content planning support, where actually when you've got all of those platforms and all of those different places where you need to put content, if you've got a really small team, actually that can be quite a lot from a capacity point of view for them to create. So we will wrap around your team and really help in terms of delivering that content to a high standards. We've got content creation support, again, to really help you make sure that your content is at the level that you want it to be at. Again, balanced in with some creativity as well and some creative ideas in terms of how that's brought to life. And finally, we also can do training sessions to upskill team members, so your colleagues in your social media team, to upskill them and help them succeed and grow, but also can do training sessions with other departments in your business on the role of social and where they fit into that, especially when you've got a model where your employees are also designed to be active on social as part of your strategy. The second thing you can do is outsource social media, which is strategy and execution, altogether and leave it to the experts. And we call this we do it with you, we do it for you model. So actually you can see on the right-hand side there, it starts with the audit, into the strategy, into creative foundations, into content and campaign planning. It then moves into the execution stage, so actually bringing all of that to life and managing all of the content, scheduling, posting, etc. Then also other initiatives, so it might be that you want to look at influencer management or even community management, and then the reporting, measurement, optimization, and so it goes. And actually, when you're a business who is incredibly busy, incredibly time poor, and actually, might not know too much about social media yourselves, you might just want to outsource all of it altogether and leave it to the experts.
Thanks, Em. An awful lot to take in there, an awful lot of great tips as well. One of the things that immediately sort of jumps out at me was your example there in terms of National Whatever Day. And I remember when sort of social first started actually, and looking at content plans as an agency, for our clients, and it was National Friendship Day, and we were like, right, we've got to post. And of course, it's moved on so much from then. It's about raising the benchmark, right, beyond these tactical one-offs, right? It's also, for me, you kind of mentioned about other departments, it's setting internal boundaries as well. The other really important thing, right, is just this, not just once a year or even once a quarter. It's constant improvement in everything that we do. And that measurement, that reporting, the optimization, the constant improvement, is what gets to excellent social content and communications. Having bigger commercial goals and that play in the integral plan, in the full marketing mix, and an awful lot there to take in, an awful lot to consider, I guess, for brands.
Absolutely.
So, just kind of summarizing some of the points in terms of the approaches that we take and have taken. We see it kind of being about getting to a team that works for you. Of course, that very much could include a social apprentice if they're supported in completely the right way. So maybe a slightly unfair headline for the webinar, but it's all about getting the right team it's the right mix for you. So as Em said, the mix of outsourcing that upfront work to specialist support, or training for your teams, or completely outsourcing all of your social media and leaving it to the experts. Whichever that structure is, and whatever best hits your objectives, your current team and your budget, it's something that we can potentially help you with. So here's a slight plug as well. So some of the brands that we've helped along their journeys as well. And if anyone's got any specific questions about any of the campaigns that we ran for them, again, I can kind of pick up with you separately here too. So in conclusion then.
Fantastic. So we've got 3 key takeaways that we'd like you to consider. The first one is make sure you have a social media strategy for your business. Make sure we've got that one direction and really clear on your objectives and KPIs, the role and purpose of each channel, who you're talking to, what your content pillars are, and ultimately what the plan is. The second takeaway is setting your team up for success, and please don't let your apprentice run social media alone. It doesn't work for your business and doesn't get you the results that you want, but it also isn't really fair on them. And it's worth highlighting that, again, that a social media user is not the same as a social media manager. And we've talked about the skill set and experience required to effectively run social. And just because somebody is a digital native does not mean that they can run social in the right way for you and your business. The final takeaway is to bring in the experts where necessary, whether that's to do the upfront heavy lifting and then support your team ongoing, or to run your social media accounts for you, saving you both time and money.
Super. Thanks, Em. So at this point, we'd like to invite questions from anyone. I think time-wise, we're doing well. So we have got a little bit of time to answer any questions that you might have here. So please pop them in the chat on LinkedIn, comments on YouTube, or again in the comments section on StreamYard as well, dependent upon where you're viewing from. Right, I'll try and find some questions for you here. So the first one is, I'm thinking about expanding onto other social platforms. How should I go about doing this?
Great question. So thank you to the person that put that forward. I think it's really interesting when you see new platforms, and especially if you're a business who might only be on one or two social media platforms, to think about the ones that you're not on and consider whether they're right for you. And ultimately, it's not about being where everybody else is. That's not the driver to be on more platforms. It's actually about thinking about your goals as a business, what the role of social is, and what are the right platforms to help you reach those goals. So my advice, Mark, would be to really think about the platform that you're looking to go on, what you're trying to achieve from social for your business, and whether that's the right fit, and also whether your customers are on that platform as well, because ultimately you might want to be on a platform, but if your customers aren't there, it's probably not much point.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Sam. So the next question, I think we've touched on already, or you've mentioned. So, but I'll let you expand upon it. So, social in our company seems to be more tactical and reactive than I would like. So, listing job opportunities, celebrating employee milestones. How can you manage this so that we can focus upon driving sales? So, I suppose focus more upon commercial objectives.
Great question. And again, this is something that we touched on because it's something that we see quite a lot happen when actually the role of social isn't quite clear. And sometimes people internally might think that they can post, anything they like on social and that will be absolutely fine. And, I always think it's really interesting to just take a step back and think about the customer and what they are seeing on social. So somebody in a certain department might think it's great to post about Julie's 2-year anniversary and put that all over social. But actually, is that right for the customer? Is that what the customer's wanting to see? And if not, it's probably worth having that conversation internally. I think when you're really clear about the role of social, and especially when it comes to the commercial objectives that might sit behind that, it then helps you have the right conversations internally to maybe politely push back on some of those requests a little bit.
All right, thank you. Right, I've got a tricky one now. I've got slightly contentious, I would almost say. So how can I encourage my employees to be on social more?
Okay. So again, it really does depend on your business. So in your business model, whether you are wanting your employees to become advocates for your business or brand and therefore post on social. I think, there are times when actually that's not quite the business model that you want to go after. If it is something that you're looking to do, it's really about giving those employees or departments in your business the right training and in terms of how your brand shows up on social, how to voice their opinions in the right way and how that aligns to you and you and your brand and what you're trying to achieve. And again, just giving them kind of the right armory, the right training, so that when they are posted on social, it's always a positive reflection of you and your brand.
Okay. Super, thanks. Next question is how many or how much, should probably say how much content should we be posting and when? Again, I think you've kind of touched upon this already, but yeah, around when should we be posting and what content?
I think there's quite a lot of cheat sheets out there that will tell you should be posting this many times on LinkedIn, but only this many times on Facebook. But ultimately, it's really about doing that audit and thinking about your customers. What do they want to see from you? What are they expecting to see from you? And ultimately, you might look at your audit phase and go, actually, the less we post, the less we see engagement, or the more we post, there might be a tipping point where you post too many times and then engagement drops off. So again, go back to the audit, think about how your customers are interacting with you currently, and where's that sweet spot where you get the best out of your audience in the right way. Then think about the industry benchmark around when is best to post, and kind of join the two together, because ultimately that forms a really big part of your strategy about, again, getting the right message to the right people at the right time.
So there's not one size fits all, is there?
No, absolutely not one size fits all, I'm afraid.
So I've got another question that's around content as well. And again, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but does the same content work across all social platforms?
I think a content pillar in your strategy should be able to be broad enough that it can work across multiple platforms. However, where we see sometimes it be a challenge for businesses is when they simply copy and paste the same caption and image onto multiple platforms. I think it's really important to note that, again, when you do that audit phase, you might realize that you have different audiences on different platforms. So you might want to tailor, and I would highly recommend tailoring your message and content by platform to the audiences on there. I think it can be quite a tricky territory when we are copy and pasting and putting one piece of content the same onto multiple platforms.
Okay, super. And another question for you. So this is via LinkedIn. So from Lizzie, what are the most common training sessions that your clients ask for?
Good question. I think one of the most common training sessions we see is actually that departments piece, where they want to train a department or a group of employees in the business around how to use social in the right way, voice their opinions in a way that reflects the brand, in a way that kind of might highlight their expertise. So actually, a lot of times in businesses, your employees are also experts. So how do we get that across in the right way? But ultimately, I think a really good use of that training time can be to bring other people on the journey of social with you and really educate them on how your particular brand or business wants to show up on social and what their part in helping to deliver that is.
Super. And I'm conscious of time, so just one final question, if that's all right, and then we'll move on. Again, this might be one that's a whole webinar on its own. How will AI impact social marketing?
I think it's fair to say it already is. And I would imagine that any social media manager right now is looking at those tools that are available and thinking, actually, how can I use these tools to make my job easier? And it's really worth noting that AI is there to help you make things easier, not to replace. So it's really easy sometimes, I think, to the likes of ChatGPT, etc., to go, oh, we'll just ask ChatGPT to create a content plan for us, or, ask ChatGPT to create a series of posts. And really, it's that knowledge of your business, it's that knowledge of your strategy, it's that judgment of the person that really helps define what the right social media content plan is for you. So I think for me, I very much see AI being a helpful tool for social media managers to help them create better content quicker, faster, etc., but not necessarily replace them altogether.
Super. Thanks, Em. So we've got just a couple of minutes left. So we'll move on to the next slide, if that's all right. So you mentioned at the start, Em, so I'll talk about this. We have a bonus for everyone today. So we do have a common social myths and platform top tips guide. What we do after these sessions is send out an email with a link to the webinar itself, just in case you missed any of it, or if you want to watch any of it back. So as part of that communication, you'll have the option basically to request this, and we will basically email you back. Also got another little bonus for everyone first. So we played Who Wants to Be a Millionaire earlier on. So fastest finger first. When we send out that email, we're offering a free 1-hour consultancy, so a free session giveaway to talk about your social media needs, where you're at, and how we might be able to help you. So once we send that email out, the first person that comes back on that will win, as it were, that session. And yes, they get to talk to you, Em, for an hour. How about that?
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. I love it when we have those sessions with clients where we really get under the skin of their business and where they're at, and think about how the different ways that we could help them, because each business is different. Each business's relationship with social is different. The team that they've got in place might be unique to them and their own structure. So the more that we can sit down with people and think about how to get the best out of social with their current team, the better all round, in my opinion.
Super, thank you. Just one final plug, if we might. So we're here to help. Reach out to us at any point with any other questions that you might well have. We mentioned earlier on about our first step would be a social audit. If that's something that you're considering that we can help you with, that's where we'd normally start. So again, please reach out to us and we can tell you a little bit about that, how it works, and the different tiers in terms of the depth of the audit that we can consider for you. And then finally, the next slide, if you'd like to scan this QR code here, I mentioned earlier on about other webinars that we're running. So basically scan this, it will take you to the Logic and Magic website. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you're able to sign up to our newsletter. Our newsletter will then kind of include all information about future webinars, or go on to LinkedIn and our events page, and you will see that too. But this is basically across all different bits of the business. So from UX roundtables to creative and beyond. If you sign up, then we'll send you some nice tips, treats, and everything moving forward. Thank you very much. Thank you for everything. I think that concludes. So yes, thank you for everyone that's joined us, and bye.